Well, the Tesla news today is that there's not a lot of news, but there is news about the news. So I'm going to try to analyze some of the news about the news and also talk a little bit about what I expect for next week. This is Randy Kirk, and if you like the fact that we try to do a news show on Saturday afternoon, even when there isn't much to report, well, then hit the like button and then subscribe and notify. And of course, Patreon is always an option for $5 a month. Okay, here we go. Well, okay. There's no question that the Ford Tesla deal was a very big deal last week. And if you didn't believe it then you should believe it now, because there's been, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of words written about it since then, whether that's on CNBC, whether that's on Fox News, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Twitter. Everybody is talking about the Ford Tesla deal with the superchargers. I reported the other day that there was a number of different reasons why this was important. And I would say that overall, listening to almost every report, I tried this morning to listen to like what everybody was saying about it. We've really covered it. We've covered it in earlier with the video that I put out right after the Twitter Spaces deal. So this is huge. It's huge from the standpoint that Tesla will in fact now this opens the door to every other manufacturer of cars, whether they are only in the EV space in China or whether they're a domestic maker in the United States. Doesn't matter whether they're a startup or whether they're a legacy automobile company. It opens the door for any and all of them to come to Tesla and say, hey, what could we do together? Elon's been making this offer for a very long time. Nobody was taking him up on it, but all of a sudden now it's okay to do that. And of course, the NACS charger, this is something that Tesla would obviously prefer. It's a way better charger on so many levels. So now, getting General Motors and the Biden administration and others to agree that that should be the standard, that may take years, but at least this is a first step in that direction. That would be massive if that was the way it goes. The biggest thing is, and here's the biggest knock, you've heard it before when Tesla said they'd open their chargers to other vehicles who could come in with and use their new smart chargers. The biggest deal is, will this create lines at Tesla locations? And I think this is possible from time to time, but you have lines at any kind of station from time to time. So will this create a problem long-term? I don't think so. Because why? Because Tesla has the data. If they see that they're getting overrun with people on a consistent basis, even if it's just on the weekends on, the I-5 in California or something, they're going to know that they need to put more chargers in that location or in a location nearby. They have the data. They have more data than anybody, and they are easily able to adapt to these kinds of changes that are taking place. They're putting the chargers in very large locations like Target parking lots and whatnot, where there's an opportunity to expand beyond where they already are. And they've already got lots with 100 chargers or 150 chargers. Nobody else is doing anything like this. So can they increase the number of chargers that they're making in New York? Yes, they probably can. Can they bring some in from China? I don't know. I'm assuming that they're a lot about what they're manufacturing in China is the same standards. Could they build an entirely new factory in the United States to make even more? Of course they could. There's so many ways that they could increase and probably intend to increase even without this. They probably years in advance, they already know exactly their plan in terms of where they want to be. I know that their intention is to be at 100,000 chargers by the end of next year. So that's a lot of chargers. Financially, you've probably seen my earlier reports on this. A lot of people aren't reporting on it, but just think about 100,000 chargers. If each charger only did $1,000 a year in profit. If each stand, each pump, if you will, each cord, each connection, if each one of those only did $1,000 a year times 100,000, we have $100 million in profit. If you change that to 10,000, you've got $1 billion in profit. You can do the math. So, this is a big business, but it will be always a rounding error in terms of Tesla's other business. So this is why I continue to say that this should be spun off. Well, I had a comment the other day from one of the old videos. Somebody was looking at one of the old videos and saying, Randy, you want to spin off the supercharger business? How does that help us Tesla owners? Well, you spin it off. It is a dividend. It is a stock dividend to the stockholders in equal amount to what they own now in Tesla stock. So you end up owning the same percentage of the stockholders' portion of the spinoff. So let's say Tesla says, we'll continue to hold 50% ownership, make it a subsidiary, and the stockholders will get as a dividend the other 50%. Now you do a separate IPO, this stock becomes publicly traded, and it trades on its own merits as a small company with $1 billion or a couple $1 billion in profit, which is huge and great and wonderful, but it's really nothing compared to the hundreds of billions that Tesla will be earning in other categories. So I continue to hit this drum, beat this drum. If you think I'm right, let me know in the comments, or if you think I'm completely nuts, put it in the comments as well. I'll be happy to respond on a continuing basis about this subject matter. All right, so I don't see a problem with the charging stations being overrun by other makes and models. I do see an opportunity for Tesla to make lots and lots of money. And I do see that all of the other manufacturers are going to have to join in this move that Ford just started the ball rolling. Others, huge news that came out on Thursday, Friday was that FSD 11.4.2 is out there, and some people already have it, like Chuck Cook. I watched him do a couple of videos. He's saying that, yeah, there's some things that are better. He's saying that the narrow road problem, which is one that he's concentrating on now, that the left turn, unprotected left turn seems to have been solved. Now he's dealing with the narrow road problem. And he says that this update helped the narrow road problem halfway. But where there's a narrow road with no center line, no painted yellow or painted white middle line, there are still issues, including the car tried to just move right into the lane of an oncoming car. So that's not good. So anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm sure there'll be an 11.4.3, et cetera, and then maybe an 11.5 before we get to 12, where Elon has explained that 12 will be where it is completely AI from beginning to end, from input all the way to all of the outputs in terms of steering, braking, and accelerating. Okay, number 3 is not a Tesla item, but anything that affects the Elon Musk brand and the overall ecosystem around Elon Musk also affects Tesla, because it just enhances that understanding that that Elon and his companies are all at the leading edge of so many different industries. Well, he says Starship, the launch pad will be fixed in about a month, 100% ready to go. And then they'll take about another month to do more testing of Starship before it'll be ready for another launch. So that's not too bad. A couple of months or so, we should be looking at the next effort to get Starlink into orbit. On another one of his companies, Neuralink, this is really big news if you are following the whole Neuralink thing, and that is they're approved for human testing. So you don't get any bigger news than that, other than maybe 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, whatever, they have proven that this is safe to install. I'm sure that's going to be the first question. There may be also some tests immediately, not only about installing it in a human and having it be safe, but also starting to see some results in actual human behavior, humans overcoming blindness, or some kinds of paralysis, or some kind of neurological diseases, which will be the first things that Neuralink is supposed to do. So anyway, it's a pretty cool thing. By the way, going back to Starship for a second, we did a video this morning. I believe that was might have been yesterday. Anyway, everybody seemed to really like the video, and it was really dealing with the fact that one of the biggest opportunities you have if you're a Tesla shareholder is that Elon he hasn't said it really specifically, but when the IPO happens for Starlink, that the Tesla stockholders, I think, will get a first shot at those IPO offerings. And so to the extent that Starship and Starlink and all of that part of the business do well, this could be a future opportunity for all stockholders that is much bigger than anybody even knows. Oh, that's right. I think that was this morning's video with Brian Wong. Okay, so number 5, Gary Black notes this morning that the money supply, M2, continues to go down faster than it has gone down in 50 years. If you've watched my channel, if you've watched my history, if you know about the fact that I've written a book in the past on recessions, and I've gone deep in understanding how recessions happen, why the various recessions happen, because most people, even economists, are completely wrong about several of the recessions and what actually took place, especially the 1991, the George Bush recession just before he lost the re-election. That one was completely misunderstood. Anyway, this M2 money supply has me the most concerned of any stat out there. The small banks having trouble, or regional banks having trouble, yeah, it's a big deal. Interest rates going up, yeah, it's a big deal. Mortgage rates, potentially going back up to into the, maybe even 7% again, that would be a big deal. But no, nothing is bigger than if the money stops moving. I just have to tell you, that is what the Ronald Reagan recession was all about. When the money stops moving, it's disastrous at all levels of business, everywhere from retail all the way to manufacturer, raw material, mining. Everybody gets creamed when the money supply dries up. So this is the one to watch. If that money supply starts to actually interfere with everybody's ability to borrow and everybody's, then you'll see it just ripple through the economy. If you can predict that when that's going to happen, that'll be a good time to take a break, to sell off your stock and get ready for a big downturn. So you can buy back in at a lower number. I'm not an investment advisor. This is not investment advice. This is based on my personal analysis for over 50, anyway, a lot of years of watching the stock market and being involved in studying it in depth. Okay. Well, here's what I see. I'm saying also that Tesla is undergoing a major shift in its narrative. If you haven't watched those videos from last week, you should watch my videos from last week. This narrative switch is something that I think I was the first to talk about. Some people might disagree with me. I think I nailed it first. The narrative shift has continued as the macro shift is now taking place. The macro shift is shifting now to AI, to risk on slightly. It's not really fully back on it, but it is maybe back on with regard to tech and with regard to especially AI companies. And once again, I think I was ahead of CNBC and others and pointing out that this macro shift was taking place. Anyway, I know that I was early, but I just want to tell you that this shift is taking place. Is it time to increase your position because of it? I don't know. You know what your own risk situation is, how you think about risk and how you like to play the market. But for me, it's the beginning of what I've been talking about all along, with Tesla going to 300 by the end of the third quarter and then starting towards 400, which they probably reach in the first quarter of 2024. And it also is the beginning of the next bull, which I don't think starts until September, October, but could start sooner because of this whole AI thing. And as Tesla continues to talk about how strong they are as an AI company, and if we begin to see some more meat on that bone, that could really start to bounce Tesla up in the stock market. So what's going to happen in the near term? Nobody ever knows. I'm just saying that next week, the biggest thing happening, of course, is the employment numbers on Friday. I think we'll see Tesla sideways to slightly down on Monday or Tuesday. I think the market will be sideways to slightly down. I think in both cases, that'll be due to profit taking. We've had quite a nice little run up. So I think some people will be taking profits. Now, if there is a final decision that the credit limits, that the credit numbers will be raised by Congress, that they're agreeing with the president, everybody agrees to a number and how that's going to work. If they get that agreement done, then I think you could see a decent pop although it seemed on Friday like everybody thinks that's going to happen anyway, so it could be sell on the news. So that's why I'm saying I don't see a lot of fast. I don't see a continuation of this little mini bull that we've had for 2 or 3 weeks. In the beginning of the week, crazy things can happen. There's always opportunities where we don't even know what's going to hit. But that's how I see it for the beginning of next week. And I'll talk way more about this on Monday night. If you're not watching my Monday night show, where I talk about in detail all of the reporting, the stats and indexes that are going to be reported, as well as the companies that are reporting next week, my estimates of what Tesla might be looking at for the following week in terms of what they might be talking about or what might affect them for the following week. If you don't watch that show on Sunday night, that's one of my most popular episodes. I highly recommend that you invest in that by hitting the subscribe button and then hitting notify. And it doesn't cost you a thing except, to hit notify. And if you liked what I talked about as best as I could today with a slow news day, hit like, and then I'd love to see you over on Patreon. This is Randy Kirk. It has been great talking to you.